Welcome to the Conscious Leadership Podcast, where soulful entrepreneurship and holistic mind-body wellness meet to help you heal, discover your soul's purpose, and change the world. I'm your host, Gabby Ortega, entrepreneur, psychology expert, social media maven, and soulful leadership coach. And it's my mission to empower you into becoming the light leader you're meant to be. Each episode will be diving deep into topics that will help you gain personal mastery over your healing and mind-body wellness, while also giving you practical tips and tools to help you create, market, and scale a heart-centered business around your soul's purpose and life mission. Whether you're in the beginning of your self-awakening journey or a seasoned inner work god or goddess who's ready to step into their leadership as a soulpreneur, this is going to be your new favorite place to be. We know that you don't just want to feel happier and more fulfilled, but you want to deeply know yourself and powerfully step into your life's purpose while creating massive abundance around your mission. That's why I've created this podcast for you, the light leader of the next generation. Welcome home. I'm so glad you're here. Hi guys, welcome back to the Conscious Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Gabby Ortega, and I am here today with Emmy Marie. I am so happy she's here. She is the owner and founder of Blooming Forward. You may have seen me repost her a bunch of times and talk about her. She's also one of my mastermind clients. She's incredible. She is a trauma recovery coach, and she hosts an educational platform on trauma recovery on Instagram. It's super, super popular. I think she has something like 25,000 followers, and it's a great space and community to really meet other people who are on the self-healing journey, and a great place to find information and resources on healing from trauma. So welcome, Emmy. I am so, so, so excited to have you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I'm so excited to be here. This podcast I'm so excited to listen to all your episodes. It's going to be great.
I'm excited too. This is the first time, obviously, I'm doing this. So, I'm just throwing it out there. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's a niche that's needed, is like the intersect, like basically what you do, and why I joined the mastermind is like why I would listen to this podcast, because there's not a lot at that intersection of like mental health and entrepreneurship. So
yes. Oh my God. I love that you said that. I'm so jazzed, because everybody, including yourself, that I want to call into those programs for the Leadership Academy, which, guys, I don't know when this is going to air, but hopefully before we open enrollment in the second week in September, we do have a new round of the group coaching program opening. Emmy just went through it, and it is so fucking fun and just a great place to grow your business, to make friends, and to really grow yourself. But I don't want to make this a pitch for that, but I do want to say that it is definitely that intersection of, self-healing, really doing your deep inner transformative work, and then finding your purpose through that and creating a conscious business around that. So, this is like the audience for this podcast. They're all incredible human beings. So I'm excited to share you with them. I think the first thing, and the thing that I'm always curious about, is I do ask everybody this question, and I forgot to tell you before we prep for this, so I apologize for putting you on the spot. But what makes you, Emmy, feel like your most light leader self?
I love that. So that answer comes to me very quick, and it's when I am watching a transformation of a client, or even just someone on Instagram kind of say like, I never thought of it that way, or like the light bulbs just go off. And it's like, my whole mission is I looked back at myself 5-7 years ago and had no idea what I had just been through was trauma, had no idea, all the symptoms were so confusing and disorienting. And so all I wanted was there to be support for that person. And so, when I get those results with other people now, it's just like, that is like, gives me life. Like, that's like the reason I exist. So I suppose that is my light leader kind of mission, is like to help other people that were in similar positions that I was in see that there is hope, and like things can get better, and like support is available. So that's what I would say to that.
Oh my God, I love that. And I think something that makes you such a light leader is that you do embody everything that you teach. And I know this because I've seen you do it and we've talked about it. And one of the things I feel really aligned with is like, I want to work with people and be around people who are not just talking about what they want people to do, but really embodying it and showing and holding a mirror up to the possibilities. Because I think when I was healing from trauma, like, and I'm not sure if this is your experience, I really felt hopeless. I felt like no one went through what I went through. I felt so much shame around not being able to like pick myself up and just everybody seems to be fine. And why can't I do this? And so, and that self-loathing just increases and increases, and paralyzes you and you never get better. But it's when I actually met my fourth therapist in my lifetime, or fifth actually, because it took a while to find the right one.
Yeah.
He actually like kind of disclosed her trauma in a very tactful way, that didn't feel at all like, you know, she was making it about her, but it really opened up my eyes and I was like, oh, no, this person who I thought had it so together, this therapist, this like gorgeous person. And just, I was like, wow, how is it possible that you've gone through this too? And that was honestly more therapeutic than the therapy because I could see for like in front of me, someone who got better. And I was like, oh, okay, if this person can do it, then I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I can figure it out.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I feel like that's like the power of embodied hope is like, it's not just saying like, oh, things can get better, but it's like, I can see someone and things got better for them. And yeah, that's like, it's really interesting. I've been learning so much about business and marketing, and it's like, there's so much about people love authenticity. And when I first started my Instagram, like I never intended for it to become a business. It was just like a passion, like a side project kind of thing, just for fun. And my whole thing was always authenticity. And I was like anonymous at first. And I was just like, I'm just going to put this out there. So if there's other people that have experienced this, they know they're not alone. And like, as it's grown, I've never really wavered from that sort of ideology. Is like when I'm struggling with something, I don't pretend I'm not. And like, obviously I don't reveal everything I'm going through, but like, you know, painting that pretty picture is like what turns people off, especially nowadays, like in every niche is like inauthentic equals bad. So I feel like that's helped me a lot, like build trust with my audience. And it's like, that's why when people, like on discovery calls are kind of, you know, like wondering what it's like to work with me and they like love my Instagram. I'm like, you get it. Like, that's me. Like the way I like talk on stories, here. Like now you get it one-on-one about your life instead of just, you know, whatever I feel like spewing out that day. So yeah, I'm like really glad that I just kind of intuitively was authentic. I don't know. I think most people are, but whatever.
But I think there's something, it's really scary to be authentic, to fully allow yourself to be seen. And I think when we're on the healing journey and we've been on it for some time, it's like we reach a point where we're like, well, it can't get any worse. So here's everything. Yes. At least that's how I felt. And then it becomes normalized, but that actual stepping into that is hella scary. And I can so relate to the way you built your business, because I started Om Therapy Coaching. Literally, that was my anonymity, was not putting my name as the handle. Right. And it was like, let me just share like all this stuff I'm going through and see if I can help, because the stuff I was learning in my master's program was like, oh my God, like what? Everybody needs to know this. So I was like, I'm just going to share. And I think that transparency of like, this is where I am, this is what I'm going through. I had a panic attack today. This is like ugly and messy. 100% builds trust, because that's life. Like that is life. Anybody who's all love and light, I am very, very wary of, because that person is not real. That person has shadows that they have not touched, or they don't even think they have them. And that person is not a safe person to be around.
I completely agree. And something I was going to say, it lost me, but yeah, totally. Like authenticity is like the name of the game. And it was about like it being hard. And I think I don't really know a lot about like ego. It's not really like the realm I focus on a lot. But I remember when I went through like my abusive relationship, I think I learned about ego death, and I was like, that is what happened to me. Like, cause it's just, you're at the like rock bottom, like barely existing. For me, it was. And so I was just like, any sort of ego I ever had, which as a child, I had a huge ego. I was an only child and like very, very privileged. And not that I was a bad person, but I was, you know, kind of obnoxious, I guess. Anyways, whatever, I was a kid. And then after it, I was just like, you know, you're knocked to like, I didn't think I had any worth at all. So it's like the ego is done, like pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not true. It's not like now I don't have an ego. I absolutely do. But I think a lot about like being willing to show yourself. First of all, you have to acquire enough safety to do so, which is like, I didn't start doing this right away. It took years of work before I ever put myself out there. So I want to make that clear. But I think another part of it is like, when you kind of like, I don't really care if other people think I'm weak or something. And like, I mean, the reception I've always gotten from my audience is just so much gratitude. Like no one's ever said like, get over it, you know, or whatever.
Me either, which
trauma,
I really thought would be like,
right.
I was really afraid of putting myself out there because of like, number one, like you said, I hadn't really established safety in my body yet.
Yeah.
And that was something I did as I started going on Instagram. I was like, I got to figure this out because this is like being triggered all over the place. Yeah, that's really interesting. And actually, I wanted to ask you, can you share about your story? And I know you mentioned a couple of like an abusive relationship. And I think this is your journey is so powerful and so important because I think other people think that they can't have a life like this, like that you have. Being an entrepreneur, running a conscious business, helping people, living in your gifts, feeling really fucking good about it. And never ever feeling like a day in your life you have to live in a way that it isn't aligned with who you are at your core. A lot of people think, oh, if I've suffered through something really horrible, I'm broken or I'm damaged or I'm in no position to help other people. Like, tell us about your story and be our mirror and show us what's up.
Yes, of course. So basically I got in this relationship when I was 15. That was like the very stereotypical narcissistic abusive relationship. And I, up until that point, had like a very anxious attachment style, so it would seem, and I'm an Enneagram 2, for anyone that knows what that means, very reliant on other people to be happy for me to be happy, and other people to like me for me to be okay. So entered this relationship and was just like love bombed is kind of the term that's used, is like, it's almost like the grooming process, but it's, you know, we were both 15. So basically just like get you hooked by like showering you with love very rapidly. Like there was no like, you know, nice little like transition. It was just like 3 weeks in, like we're in love, you know, and things just like escalated really quickly. And just over the course of the 3 years, it went from that. And then once I was hooked and he kind of could sense, and this is just, if you ever Google like narcissistic relationship or something, it's by the book. Like it's kind of scary how these patterns are get played out. But once they can kind of sense you're hooked, it's like, okay, now they can start with like the subtle, like emotional manipulation to like get you to do what they want and start controlling you. But in a way that if you ever question it, it's like, well, I just love you. Like, I just want what's best for you.
It's like the removal of that affection is the punishment. Like the removal of that affection, that love, that attention. And it feels so good, especially for those of us who may not have received that from people in our lives growing up. And that is definitely a tricky place to be in. Yeah.
So it's like, it starts with that. And then it quickly escalated to like intense verbal abuse and like lots of sexual abuse. And I was just at this age, 15, where like no one ever taught me what consent was. No one ever taught me like what a healthy relationship looks like. And in movies and stuff, you see very like passionate relationships that have these huge like ups and downs. So when we were having huge ups and downs every day, like screaming fits, and then like, you know, the opposite, I guess. I was just like, okay, so this is normal. This is what love is. This is what a relationship is. This is passion. This is, And it's like, no. I wish the media would portray like just a nice, normal, almost boring like relationship. But obviously that's not clickbaity enough, but whatever. Sometimes
no, but I feel you. I mean, everything
Yeah.
is so dramatized that it
Yeah.
normalizes violence. It normalizes codependency, enmeshment,
Yes.
and possession, control.
Yes.
Yeah, all of those.
Right. And I think maybe it's gotten better, but like, 10 plus years ago, I think like that the possession and control things all like very normalized. So anyways, and then over the course of the relationship, like he became kind of like an addict, and was in and out of jail and stuff. And I basically had to like split my life into like this victim of abuse, but I didn't want anyone else to know about it because then I would have to be accountable for the fact that I was allowing this to happen. And I felt like a big part of trauma is like or at least complex trauma is like the perceived like sense of entrapment. So obviously I wasn't physically trapped, but I was getting lots of cues by direct threat and otherwise that like if I left, death would result essentially.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like that tells your body like, okay, we can't leave. And if anyone knows about this, they're going to make us leave. So we don't tell anyone and we just take this all. So there's no support system and so much lying, so much masking, so much like going to school and being like, the all-star student and just like trying to make it through every day, trying to maintain friendships that they don't know anything what's going on. I was really big into Flickr, which is kind of like, it's kind of like how Instagram is now. Like all my friends, we were all like photographers on there and I would portray my relationship as this like magical, amazing love story, and all the sex stuff is being really cool. And it was just like horribly painful. So anyways, long story short, that's kind of like, it's really hard to summarize 3 years of abuse, but it was really bad. Yeah. And then it ended because really an interesting thing happened. He wanted me to get him Xanax to abuse from my doctor. And I did whatever he told me to because I was terrified of him. So I went and told her I had anxiety. And at this point I was like the lowest of the low, like so depressed, suicidal. So I definitely had, anxiety and depression. And she was like, okay, like I'm going to have you try Zoloft. I think that's a better fit because that's a antidepressant. It's SSRI. So I got on that and he was like, okay, you know what? In a couple of weeks, you're going to leave me. Like, I know you're going to leave me. And I'm like, what? And he knew that if I was no longer depressed and anxious, I would leave him. And it's kind of like one of those really eerie moments in your life, because at the time I was like, no, like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm going to be with you forever. And over the course of those 2 weeks, as it started working, first of all, he went back to jail, which it was supposed to be for like 6 months. So I'm like, oh, this is my out. And the antidepressant, and this is not like me plugging antidepressants, it's just my story. And so I have to share it, but it changed, like my serotonin, worked. And I was like, so this is the one thing in my life that sucks. I'm done. And I wrote him a letter, left him. And then he ended up getting out of jail, stalking me. So that's like more trauma stuff. But I was like walking on air, like just the highest I had ever felt all the time. So happy. And this was like the last 3 months of high school. So it basically been my whole high school was this relationship. And now I was free. And I was free AF, like So anyways, then I went to college out of state and I was just like free bird. That never happened. Like barely told anyone. If I did, I would breeze through it, smoke and drink every day. Just like party central, super social, but ended up just like chasing people, emotionally unavailable guys, because I didn't understand what a healthy relationship was. I had no sense of self-worth whatsoever. So I was just like going for crumbs, like always just like trying to get someone to, love me instead of loving myself, and really didn't know the concept of like self-love at all. Which is just crazy now because I preach it constantly. And it's all over the internet now. But anyways, so basically the whole point of this part is like I was completely in denial that anything ever happened. I never heard the word trauma before. And then I started dating someone else and it wasn't great. But since it wasn't like outright abuse, which at this time I was like, yeah, that was an abusive relationship. So I knew that. And I was like, okay, so this isn't you're not yelling at me every day. So I guess it's fine that you're like cold as ice and like force me to do things, you know, like sexual stuff that I'm like, you know, just guilt me into doing stuff every day that I didn't want to do. I was like, well, you're not like, you know, I don't want to get into the details on here, but whatever. I was just like excusing it and just like super depressed, anxious every single day. And I'm like, something's wrong with me. I have mental illness. I'm this dark person, like whatever. And then that, like, these are some of the examples of like wake up calls from the universe that I've experienced in my life, is like everything at a certain point, everything we tried to do together, every vacation we took, it just, things went wrong over and over. And like we went on this trip to Canada and like 6 things went wrong that easily could have gone right. And I was just like, man, this sucks. And then eventually we had this big blowout fight, and it was like, I felt like for months I had been waiting for the straw to break the camel's back, because that's how I do. And it finally did. And I was like, all right, we're done. And that resulted in a horrible ending as well. That repeated a lot of things my ex before did. But after that, I was like, never again. Like, I'm never doing this again. Absolutely not. And I started having just like rigid boundaries without knowing what boundaries are. I still don't know what trauma is, you know. But basically, like about 6 months after that, I started throughout that time, flashbacks started happening. And I had really bad eczema. And that was my first chance to like start caring about my body, because it had been like 3 years of just like weeping eczema that's like oozing everywhere. It was awful. And I'm just like itching, like, you know, I would be sitting here right now like this, like, and it looks bad. Like in college, like my teachers would be like, is something going on? Like, are you okay? And I'm like, yes, it's eczema. Like, I'm not on something. But anyways, it was horrible. And whatever. So I started caring about my body, and like a part of what I was doing was an elimination diet where you don't drink. And so drinking was such a huge coping mechanism for me that not drinking for a few weeks, I was like, all of a sudden started having nightmares and flashbacks and stuff, because I was no longer like numbing, and like I was starting to feel again. So of course that was awful, but like now I look back and I know that's an essential part, and I was like waking up. So it got to the point where I realized, like, I like started Googling stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay. So like PTSD is a thing that you can get from abusive relationships, and still I didn't have complex PTSD knowledge yet. I just was like, okay, PTSD. So finally started going to therapy. And it was brutal. Like, you know, starting to learn about it. I had a couple years of like really struggling, and this is the kind of period of my life where now I'm looking for clients who are here. Is like, you kind of, there's this turning point where you start to realize like, oh, that was traumatic. I have trauma, whatever diagnosis you want to have or not. Like, just like, you know, I have something from my past that is like bringing in all this struggle, and no one sees it. No one, like, it's invisible to other people, except maybe the way you behave, you know. You know, it can definitely alter behavior. So,
but even still, people don't think that that's trauma. You know, when people come to see me, and I'm sure your clients are the same, they're telling you about all these random things that are going wrong. But when you look at the overall picture, if you understand trauma, those are leaves on a tree, and the root is the trauma. And then we have to uncover what that is.
Yeah, totally. So it's like this turning point where you realize, like, I can't live my life like this anymore. Whatever it is, for me, it was like, you know, constantly numbing with like other people or substances, or even like over exercising, diet, whatever. And it's like, okay, I have to face this and, you know, figure this out. But it's like such a hard place, because without anyone supporting you and saying like, good job, you held on to your boundary. Like, good job, you didn't drink at 8 a.m. like before you did something. Like, you know, no one really congratulates you, especially if they don't have a clue. Like, none of my friends knew any of this was going on. So it was just really hard. And like seeing that therapist once every other week, it's like, you know, that's great. But like, what about the support in between? So that's part of what got me into like what I do now. But anyways, so that was kind of like a year of really struggling. And then I ended up like moving to California, because I really got into the phrase, like, you can't heal in the same place you got hurt. And like, although most of my trauma happened in Michigan, where I'm from, like, this other kind of subsequent trauma happened in the other place. I was living in Washington, and I was like, I gotta go. And I was dating this really great guy who's still my current partner, but I was just like, I have to go. We can do long distance if you want, whatever. So I left. I lived in California, and this is now like my hermit kind of phase where I'm like, I'm reinventing myself. All the new friends and roommates I meet here, they're not going to know me as this like extremely social person. Like, I'm an introvert now, which is totally new for me. I'm like, I read, I learn about trauma, I go on walks by myself. Like, I'm living, and like, it's not like I wanted to close people out. I just had this really strong intuitive sense of like, you need alone time to heal. And that's why I call it like the hermit time or whatever. It's like, even
I
if you're in
totally
tarot,
know that phase. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like you hit your rock bottom, and then you kind of like try to do what you can to shift into that cocoon, you know? And it's like, we really have
cocoon,
to, be in that cocoon and create, like you said, like that safety within ourselves before even trying to address the other things in our life.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like, you have to rest. And this is what I really try to reframe trauma as. It's not like you're broken or you're damaged necessarily. It's like, you're exhausted. Like, all of this power in you that got you to still being alive and getting through whatever the trauma was, like, that is so powerful. And like, you will always have that trauma, or that you will always have that power. But right now, like, you are exhausted and you need to take a break. And I tell clients this all the time. Like, I wish there was just a place that trauma survivors could go to, like an island or something for like a year and just like literally do nothing but like relax, replenish, like read for pleasure, go on walks, like just like do stuff that is soul nourishing. Because instead we're expected to like, right. We have to like still keep up with the grind, keep up with our family, keep up with like everyone around us who, obviously everyone has their own trouble and struggles, but like, just we're comparing traumatized people versus non-traumatized people. It's like, it's such an invisible illness or whatever you want to call it, struggle, that I wish that, basically, so I created this for myself while still working and while still like maintaining some sort of friendships. But I was like, no one's going to expect me to go out with them on the weekends. Like, that's just not who I am anymore. And it was great. Like, it was really great to have this fresh start. And like, all my roommates were really cool and they're like still my friends now. So anyways, that was kind of my hermit stage. And like through there, I started like writing all the time. And just like every day I'm just like pouring it out, and like started getting into spirituality and mindfulness. And it was, lots of roller coaster moments of like, oh, okay, so like if I'm just present 24/7, then I'm good. And like that would last for 3 weeks. And then I would have a flashback and it's like, what's wrong with me? Or like, what is my purpose? And it's like, I had this epiphany one day where I'm like, my purpose is this, like, is the roller coaster, is the learning to be okay with this instead of fighting it all the time. And that's really become a tenet of my philosophy, is like, you don't have to be normal to be good enough. Like, you can have trauma. And that's why I'm like, I still say I have complex PTSD, even though I don't get triggered very often or like have a lot of symptoms, but it's just like, this is a part of me. And I don't know if, it'll ever go away, but like, that's okay. Like, I have like intense empathy and intense ability to understand people because of this. And like, I also have, problems because of it too, but like, I don't know. This is just like getting me on a tangent, but
I think like looking at, what are the gifts inside the pain? Yeah. It's how we transmute our pain to our power. Yes. We can create narratives around our pain that are like, either I'm a victim and that the world is out to get me and this is the way it's going to be for the rest of my life. And it feels really good to be in that place sometimes, to like just say, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to sit here. And I did. I sat there. And I think that until you get the strength to really move on and say, okay, no, actually, I don't want this, but I have to figure out then what I'm going to do, is so important, because you can change that story into, yes, was it painful? Yes. Was it traumatizing? Absolutely. Was it something that I wish I'd never, ever, ever, ever experienced? Probably.
Yeah.
But at the same time, has it led me to exactly where I am today? Yes. Is it going to be, does it allow you to now facilitate and host the kind of alchemical transformation for someone else's recovery? Yes. Could you do that if you hadn't gone through that experience? Probably not.
Right.
So it's almost like this catch-22 of like, oh, you know, you've gone through something really, really horrible. And then it's like, well, how do I want to make this work for me? How can I see this as something that's going to support me? Because if we can't do that, then life is going to be miserable. And it doesn't have to be. It really doesn't have to be. But we have to choose that for ourselves.
Yeah, totally. And I think this is an interesting point because I used to be very like, my struggle has not been like wallowing. Mine is more like I always bypass myself. And I don't let myself grieve very often. And so I'm more on the side of like, I have to let myself be sad about this and not just constantly be like, oh, like, you know, it doesn't kill you, makes you stronger. Cause that's like my coping style is like just silver lining everything. And it's like, no, this actually like was fucking terrible. Like, but anyways, I think it just brings up a point of like, I used to say like victim mentality versus survivor mentality. And now I'm kind of like, I was a victim though, like, and that's valid. And like, I think when we try to kind of like, you know, bypass over people's very real victimhood, it can feel kind of like shame can come up when we do have like a really bad nightmare. And it's like, oh no, I thought I was over this. And it's like, it just takes time. That's kind of the hardest thing for me to realize. Like I had probably like 2018, I was just like, dude, like how long is this going to take? Like I'm reading all the books, I'm listening to all the podcasts, I'm literally doing the work every day. Like, why isn't it going away? And it's like, think about like I learned about 10,000 hours, which is like this rule, I think Malcolm Gladwell thing. Yeah. And that's like about like learning like a new habit or behavior. You become an expert after 10,000 hours, which is so many hours. And I was like, how many hours did I spend learning that the world is unsafe, that I'm not safe, that I'm bad, that I'm a piece of shit? Like all those things he instilled in me, 3 years of that. So it's going to take like concentrated time of like starting to think like, no, like I am safe. Like I am good. And like, I can't do that 24 hours a day when I work, like, you know, and you have to use your mind on other things, or you're trying to maintain relationships. It's like those hours that you pour into your self-care are so valuable, but like, it might take like, I used to think like, okay, so if I'm not better in 3 years, like, you know, what? But it's like, it can take a lot longer because you can't devote every hour of your day to like rigorous, like self-care. So, yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And I think it's interesting because well, first I want to say like, I totally get what you're saying about the spiritual bypassing or the bypassing and just like, let's look at the positive. Yeah. And I definitely want to clarify that I agree with you that there are, I think, and I think it's a really good and a really important point because there are people out there who are like, well, let's just make positive meaning from this. I think it's like, we have to take a step back and not go one way or the other, but the real learning is in holding both. It's like being both the victim and the survivor, because both are true. Yeah. And then like we'll go, and in terms of the healing, I literally thought, I was like, I've been doing this for so long now, like almost a decade. I've been doing this like healing journey, like consciously. Yeah. And I still like yesterday got triggered, like 100%. There was someone who like posted something or a comment that like wasn't even mean, but it was just like slightly like disagreeing. My whole body by anxiety, just like all over. And it's like the lesson that's, I think I agree that the lesson that's hardest is kind of like knowing that this is never truly going to just go away. That you've had these experiences. There are different modalities and ways we can like process, work through in the body, in the mind, in the spirit. And we can reach a place where we feel really good, like 98% of the time, you know, and then, but there's always going to be those moments where someone pops into the picture that totally reminds you of that person that abused you, or you have a situation with someone and it's just very triggering and it's not anything you can prepare for. But what you can kind of do is, well, you can prepare for the how you handle it. You know, you can't prepare for when it happens. happens, but how you then move through it.
Yeah.
So taking that cocoon time, learning the things that make you feel really good, learning the things that you want for yourself, what your needs are, and creating a life, especially if you're coming from trauma. And this is something over the last year or two, it's like hit home with me, is I create a life around my healing. I don't stick my healing into my
100.
life. I actually mold my life around my healing. I create
100.
a schedule around it. My work is very much involved in my own healing. I have to show up for my own work if I'm going to show up for clients.
Yeah.
So I really, like, if you're someone who's going through your healing journey, know that like you can then move into a space when you're ready of really creating, a life around who you are becoming and the kind of healing experience you want to have on a daily basis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. 100. I would love to say something about that because I am obsessed with all of that. And I've said before, like healing is like a lifestyle, like, and
it's such a lifestyle. Oh my God, that's amazing.
And I totally feel like they're in the maybe Instagram bubble. I start seeing some sort of like people coming at like healing or like, talking about like everyone's obsession with healing or something. And it's like, I think that what I'm seeing is a lot of people saying like, you're just a human, like humans have bad days. Like it's not, you don't have to be always like healing or growing. And I'm like, okay, you can have that opinion. That's fine. But like, if you've been severely traumatized or had like some other sort of like chronic illness or mental health issue that's brought you to this place of feeling like the world is a dangerous place and you're like in survival mode, like, fuck yeah, healing is necessary. I'm going to keep pumping out the healing content. Like, I really don't care.
Me too.
Like, it's like, I know there are people out there that are like, like realizing for the first time that like they can care for themselves instead of like literally hating themselves. Like, and it's like, and that is powerful.
It's so powerful. And like, what is that person's definition of like, being a human? Are they normalizing trauma? Are they normalizing, experiences that could be traumatic? Like not like making them, just flipping the other side of it. If we can say, saying that we're always healing and growing or promoting that could be damaging, but at the same time, telling people that they don't need to be healing and growing, I feel like is like just don't tell people what to do. Just put stuff out there and hope that whoever needs to hear it hears it. Yeah. So I think was something that I'd love to touch on with you specifically, because you and I have such similar paths, is I really, and this is something my audience talks about a lot, especially this last week, imposter syndrome. This idea that I'm not ready enough, I'm not good enough, I'm too broken, I have too many problems, whatever that might be, that makes us feel like we are not capable or worthy of creating a life that we dream about, including entrepreneurs starting a business. So do you have anything to say around that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So imposter syndrome has been like a huge part of my journey, more than most, as you've been my coach for the last 4 months. But yeah, imposter syndrome is a thing. And like when I was when I first was like, oh my God, like I'm going to be an entrepreneur, like 6 months ago or 8 months ago, I was like, what? Like I like never imagined that for myself ever.
Yeah.
And imposter syndrome is like, has been debilitating. And there's a lot of interesting opinions on imposter syndrome once again. And a lot of like, I don't know, it's just been kind of hard to get support for that as far as like just podcasts and books or whatever, like articles. But I feel like it is really tied to trauma, because basically imposter syndrome, you are hyper vigilant looking for people that are going to tell you you're not qualified for this, you shouldn't be here, basically call your bluff. And like, it puts you in this position of like, so I guess I believe that I'm not good enough for this. And for me, like, I never really consciously thought I'm not good enough for this, but like, I was always on alert for someone that was going to call me out, especially with psychologists or just therapists on Instagram, because I respect therapists so much. Like I have a therapist, I totally into all of that, but I'm going a different route with helping people. And I was just terrified someone was going to call me out. And anytime someone even like hinted in a post or said the word coach in like the slightest like negative connotation or something, instantly like all these alarm bells are going off of like, oh my God, like, am I in my integrity? Am I doing this? Is this okay? Is this ethical? And it was like debilitating. Like it really sucks. And it just, what I realized working through all that is it's the same thing as my trauma specifically is like puts you in hypervigilance of like, if I'm in a room with people and I sense, you know, specifically for me, like a man saying something like objectifying about women or something, I like flare up and like get this like it's like I'm on alert and I'm in fight or flight basically, and like, you know, like sensing my environment, or like walking alone at night, which I never do, but even just like down the street to meet a friend, right? It's like, you're like looking for threat. And as much as that's like not fun at all, I've grown to appreciate my body for the ways that it's trying to keep me safe above all else. And I'm like, that's really cool. Like, I'm really grateful for that. You know, it sucks when the thoughts don't stop and like the fear is in your body and you get Crohn's disease and whatever. That's just me. But,
no, I feel you.
You know, it sucks, but it's also like, thank you, body. Like, I appreciate you and I'm grateful for you. I'm going to try to like do something else. But anyways, with imposter syndrome, it's the same thing. It's like, I'm scanning for threats of like, who's going to tell me that I can't do this? Who's going to tell me I'm not good enough? And what really, like, I've battled with this for days, and you know that. And what helps me a lot is I eventually realized, like, I kind of had something happen where I wasn't sure, like, I was kind of being doubted, or like my credibility was kind of put in question. And I had to say my truth, stand up for myself. I never lie about who I am or what I've come through anyways, but it was like a moment of reckoning. And through that, like, sort of my fears coming to manifest a little bit, barely, but it was enough to, you know, cry and panic about.
Yeah.
And I had this realization after of like, okay, I went through it. I survived. There's absolutely no way I'm stopping. Like, this is my passion. This is my gift. I will help people heal from trauma. So nothing's going to stop me. Like, if people realize they don't want to work with me, if therapists call me out, which didn't happen, you know, it's like, I'm not going to stop. Like, I will stand in my integrity. I am here to listen and learn and do better always. Like, I want to be challenged, but like, I'm not going to stop doing this because I know how important it is. And that was
the
it.
mission
like,
is way bigger than, you know, you made the mission bigger than like about you. Like, can I do this? Can I, you know, am I ready? Like me, but it's really like, okay, these people are telling me in the comments that what I'm writing is changing their day. It's making them think about things, that it's fucking helping them. Like, and what I want to offer to other people who are also scared of kind of stepping out and being quote unquote called out, which by the way, no one is an authority on anything really. It's just like, you know, we get degrees and stuff, but we're all human beings, all learning, all, you know, growing in that way, is that it's really interesting if you can shift the perspective into, if you face resistance from somebody, if someone does say something negative, how is that also helpful for this person? Whatever experience they're going through, you're holding a mirror up to something for them. Whether it was like for me when I was an intern and I was like working clinically as a therapist and I was looking at coaches online, I got really triggered. You know why? Because I was slaving away for 90 hours a week at a clinic that did not respect me. I had like all kinds of unethical behavior from directors and supervisors. The patient care was not number one. And that was my number one goal. So that was very, very frustrating. And I was doing this for free. As I was working full time and healing from my trauma. So I looked at these coaches online and I'm like, oh my God, they're talking about trauma and like mental health and like, who are these people? And granted, I didn't see anyone before me who was a mental health coach, but life coaches still talking about those same things. And I realized, I was like, wow, it's not that I think that they're unprofessional or this or that. I'm looking for excuses. The jealousy, the envy feeling really comes from a place of, I'm not, what makes them better than me? And if they're not better than me or smarter than me, and if I have more degrees, like, why am I not allowing myself to look at this as a possible option? They live a life that, you know, it's on their terms. They help a lot of people. I have, you know, the necessary, you know, skills, I think, hopefully, to try and do this. So, you know, and if you are feeling like triggered by someone, a coach, or by anybody who's out there doing their thing and like helping people and living their life, like, think about it as really beautiful information to dive deeper into your inner work. Think about what is it here that I am that's really coming up for me? And is it coming from a place of like, I want this for myself? Then fucking give it to yourself. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so great. Yeah. That really like reminded me of something that's been like so much of my entrepreneurship journey has been like very meta with like my healing journey or my like client healing journey that I like facilitate. And one of those things is like small, consistent actions. So like this, I thought of this because I remember having, you know, like 500 followers and then like looking at people with like 10K or whatever. And I was just like, how do they do it? Or like, you know, even some days now it happens where I'm at like 45,000 or something. And then I look at people with 72 and I'm like, you know, like just that flare of like I want to be that, you know, vanity metrics, whatever. It's like the dopamine when you get with followers. And I just get a lot of questions all the time in my DMs of like, how did you get so many followers? And that's totally valid. And like, I've been there. And I just wanted to say like, the thing about that's meta is like small, consistent actions are like, that's it. Like, that is what it is for everything that I've come to realize is like, obviously there are big healing experiences you have. And obviously there are posts that go viral and suddenly you blow up, but more likely it's like, that's why I made this journal practice that I'm like currently launching. It's like showing up for 2 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes, like to just color in some squares. Like now you've done a tiny bit of creativity. You've done a tiny bit of accountability. You've done a tiny bit of looking at the things you accomplished yesterday and saying, good job. Okay. All that is like, if you do that every single day, like boom, like stuff is going to shift rather than if you're just like, you know, I used to think I had to do like Reiki, which is great. I mean, all of those things are valuable, like Reiki, yoga, meditation, like in a huge concentrated, like healing experience. And it's like, that's great. Love all that too. But like, I tend to really undervalue simple things because I think if it's not hard, it's not effective, or if it's not like expensive, or if it's not a big deal, it's not effective. But that's kind of like a trick of, I think, capitalist culture too, is like, you need to like go hard to get success. And it's like, for me, when people ask me how I got so many followers, it's like, I just started posting every day and using hashtags, and that's it. Like, that's it.
And you
like,
spoke your truth, you know,
right.
You just, and the way that you communicate your inner experience it's so authentic. It's so, this is this person's story, and it is captivating. And I relate to every post that you post. I'm like, oh my God, my soul, you know, I just really think it's because you allow us into your own safety of your own mind. And like, that's such a gift. Like, thank you for letting us in there, you know?
Thank you. Yeah. It's so interesting because I also hear from business coaches sometimes, like, don't post what you want to post, post what your ideal client needs to hear. And I did take that advice and got some good results, but a lot of times, especially in the beginning, every single thing I was posting was basically my journal for the day. Like, I would kind of channel, I guess, just like something onto a page, take a picture of it and post it. So they were always at me, and still they are, like, whatever sort of lesson I garner from whatever I'm currently working through. Or sometimes I'll just look back at like some writing I did from 2018 or 2017 and like come up with a little nugget, and then I post that. It's like, it's all for me or my inner child or my past self. But my ideal client is my past self. So it resonates with a lot of people. But yeah, thank you. I'm glad that like comes through because it really is me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, guys, if you are thinking of, you know, you're on your healing journey, or you're a coach or a therapist already, or a spiritual guide or spiritual diviner, healer, you know, I want you guys to really think about how can you bring your authentic voice, your experience to the table. Everybody, you know, we talk about, oh, there's saturation in the market. And I hear this all the time. Like, I shouldn't be a coach. There's so many. I shouldn't go out and start a business around healing. healing. There's so many healing businesses, but it's not like the products that people are buying that they're falling in love with. It is you. And the more that you are like the weird, goofy, like shadowy, like, you know, bright, like all facets of yourself, the more that we can see you and really connect with you, the more we'll buy from you. And really you could have like the most mediocre product and sell it to like anybody if like really you are magnetic and sharing your journey and doing yourself, which of course we're not doing, but just as an example, you know, so there's a guy in the 70s, I bring this up all the time, like with potential people for the Ignite program who are like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm like, look, there was a guy in the 70s who glued googly eyes to rocks and he became like a multi-millionaire selling what's called pet rocks. Okay guys, you know, he lived in his genius. He like loved rocks with googly eyes, like, and he made that really work for him. So you can get a couple clients, you know, you can set up a business. And it sounds really scary and like, oh my God, so far away from your reach. But like you said, those little consistent steps in your healing, living in integrity, walking the path that you want to take others through. And posting from a place of you, like really uniquely what's coming up for you. That's kind of the magical formula for growing your following and really being able to take off the way you have.
Thank you. Yeah. It's like, what you're saying about it's about you, not what you're selling, has been really, really cool for me to see in action, because I've heard that a lot is like, people want you, your story, your energy. Like, sure, there might be 5 people doing the same thing you're doing or more, but people want to buy from you. And that really was affirmed to me when I had like lots of discovery calls and new clients recently when I launched my coaching business. And almost every single one of them said, like, when you talk on Instagram stories, I feel so seen and understood. And that was really interesting for me because I get a lot of engagement on my posts, but a lot of times when I will go off on Instagram stories for like several minutes. So it takes up a huge chunk of time, and I do caption them because I personally hate listening to stories. I always just read it and like skip. So I caption them so people can do that too. But a lot of times the first post will have, 1,000 views. And by the last one, there's like, 600. So obviously a lot, like 400 people just fell off because they weren't invested to listening to it. And like often people actually a lot of people do reply, but it's not enough feedback for me to feel like, oh, this is like a great way of marketing or whatever. I'm just like, I'm doing this. I hope it's helpful. Like I'm kind of spitting into the void. But like almost every person was like, said something about those stories. So that made me really know, like, because it's my personality, it's my way of articulating what I'm talking about. That's not just like my static post, which is a lot more impersonal. It might be a lot more clear, a lot more easy to read, but it's not like my voice, my hand gestures, the way I caption, whatever.
It's not your magic, your energy. Right. And I think that that's like also why videos are so important, showing up on stories, really letting us into your world, into your head. Because like you said, like the posts for me are a little more polished. I like have only a certain amount of characters. So I'm like, I have to get my point across in a way that's clear and concise. But when I talk, you get the full Gabby experience, which is like a whole lot happening.
Yeah, right. And I think that's another thing as far as like, that reminded me of when I started doing this, I still had it in my mind because social media in my past and still today has been somewhat of an addiction that makes me feel a lot worse when I am scrolling and, almost dissociating and I'm not in my body and I'm just on the internet. And it's still something that I definitely work on. But at the beginning when I started this and I was like, am I really going to make a business on Instagram? Like I had a lot of internalized shame around that and just like, this isn't professional. This is just like, whatever, like all those judging kind of tones, or like, this is bad for me, like my mental health. But I just wanted to, if anyone else is having those fears and worries, like definitely it's still something I navigate and I balance, but it has totally taken my opinion of Instagram and social media in general is like, I totally get that there are problems with being on social media all the time. Like I feel great when I take a break, but having all this healing information accessible to everyone that's on social media, which is billions of people, is so cool. Compared
so
to
cool.
like my mom, you know, is like, I didn't even know like some of the stuff I went through was traumatic, or like I didn't know all this stuff about like, because back in the day, I mean, yeah, you could go to therapy, but like, you know, in the
Trauma's a new
70s or
field.
80s,
Trauma
right?
is like
Yeah,
a fairly new field, and even
right.
still, most of the studies around trauma are around male war veterans,
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like all this information like wasn't accessible, and then if it was, you know, in like maybe journals or so, like very niche magazines or books.
And
But now
hard to
it's like
read, hard to translate. It's in that scientific
exactly,
language. It's a
exactly,
research article, which is like how do I research methods?
yeah,
I don't know what this is.
yeah,
Yeah. How do we? You brought it to such a digestible way,
right,
you know, on your Instagram that it's
right.
beautiful. Almost anybody can really understand it.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's like I also do see some, you know, posts that are sort of like, you know, online or like Instagram isn't therapy. And I'm like, I really never want it to be. I'm not trying to be a therapist on here. Like, obviously, reading a quote that I post isn't therapy, but like, damn, dude, like, it's better than nothing. Like, it's better than just scrolling and seeing, like, you know, girls in bikinis
Another
or
diet
whatever. Like,
tea or
yeah,
like weight
right.
loss pill or like, whatever
Yeah,
comes. Those kinds of things.
right.
I agree. And I, you know, again, think that, you know, people who say that are a little triggered. I don't
Right.
know.
And it's
You
like very
know,
gatekeeping,
it's
like,
very
you know,
gatekeeping. Yeah.
which
There's
I'm not
no,
about.
and I really think this is important. I tell people all the time, like my clients, like there is no monopoly on who can heal and who can be a healer or like a
Yeah.
wellness professional
Yeah.
and who cannot. You know, be
Yeah.
ethical, go get
Right.
trainings that you are called to go get,
Right.
somatic trainings or trauma trainings. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
You don't have to get a degree,
Right.
but go read books, educate
Yeah.
yourself,
Know what you're
talk to
talking
people in your
about.
field. Know what you're talking. Yeah, like don't be a jerk about it.
Right.
You know, but like
Right.
at the same time, you do not have to have a degree, a formal degree,
Right.
or, you know, all of this red tape like that we have put ourselves in a box around.
Right.
That's privilege. Not everybody
Right.
can afford to go to a 4-year
Right.
university, go to a master's
Right.
program. People have
Right.
kids, people have things going on. So,
Right. And it's unethical if you say, oh, I have a master's degree in trauma-informed psychology and you don't. That's unethical. But if you're like,
oh, totally.
I have lived experience, I have this background, I have this, like, this is what I'm going from. If you are honest with what you've gone through, you don't force anyone to work with you, which this helped me with imposter syndrome too. Is like, I'm not forcing anyone to give me money or work with me ever.
You're
Like,
not
my God,
holding a gun
like,
to someone's head and telling
hell
you, this is
no.
how you have to do this right
Yeah.
now. Like, yeah,
I'm
people
like,
have choice.
Yeah. Right. And it's like, and then like, I'm all about consent. And it's like, I want an enthusiastic yes. And that is what it takes to sign a contract, put forth money. It's an enthusiastic yes. So, you know, I'm inviting people if they resonate with my message and want to work with me, great. I want your enthusiastic yes. But if it's like any form of no, like, that's good. Like, I'm happy for you, you know? So
there's someone for everybody. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, totally. I love that.
Right.
That is seriously, there's so much gold in here for people who are just starting out. I think, you know, it's been a while since I've been in this position. So it's like harder for me to recall like these beginning stages, but so much is coming up for me and I'm like, oh my God, I remember that. Or like, oh, yeah. That's so scary. And the imposter syndrome is totally crippling. And this definitely looking at it this way really helps. And I think if you can really hone in on like, how can I stand in my integrity and be totally 100% transparent, obviously having safe boundaries around things that you're not ready to share, but being transparent and not lying or saying, oh, like I have this degree when like maybe you went for a week and then like pulled out of that school and then you don't actually have the degree, or like, you know, that stuff will break trust instantly. And that's how you drive your business totally into the ground. So just share with people, this is my story. This is what I've been through. And this is what I, you know, focus on. And if this is something that resonates, like, let's work together. Because I think another thing is we've been brainwashed, especially in this country, to only go to one Western medical doctor. Not that it's bad. I was on antidepressants, saved my life. Hello. Like definitely I'm holistic in the sense that we should incorporate medication when we absolutely need it for sure. But I think we're also like trapped into thinking there's only one way of doing things. So Yeah. So
Yes.
we have to also decondition ourselves into recognizing that there is no monopoly on, you know, who's allowed to participate in the healing and wellness world if you're standing in your integrity, and you're being ethical, and checking in with yourself and making sure that you're doing that so that you don't feel imposter-y, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like so grateful for the sort of like energy workers or even astrologists, psychics like I've personally ever worked with, because I have a degree in environmental science. Like I'm a bachelor's of science degree. So like I'm a science background person, but I also am spiritual. So it's like, I kind of like was like, yep, here's therapy, doctor. Okay. I also like naturopaths and psychics once in a while. But I've had some of the most profound like feeling of like, man, I was seen by this astrologist or astrologer. I was seen by my naturopath, where I've also had great experiences with therapy and Western doctors too. So I'm not one or the other, like both are necessary, but it's like, why am I in my mind always undercutting and undervaluing the non-traditional method? Like, who taught me that? And it's like, like perhaps white supremacy, patriarchy, capitalist culture, like,
maybe.
you know? And it sucks.
Maybe it's
it
that.
sucks.
Yeah.
Like to like realize like you've internalized the oppressor when you want to do like social justice work and like want to break out of that narrative. But that is so much a part of it.
Decolonizing wellness, decolonizing mental health. Yeah.
Realizing like how you have perpetuated the colonizers' messages to yourself, and then you know, taking responsibility for how you may have put it out to others, and like that is all so much of the work. So anyways, it's just like all connected.
And side note, for those of you who are like, oh my god, like psychology and spirituality, like it's not like you're not supposed to like blend the two, science and spirituality and stuff like that. It's something that I found out, and this is like, I've been studying psychology now for like a while. In my doctoral program, I just found out that Freud was entirely spiritual. I know Carl Jung was very spiritual, but like Freud did not know this. The person who translated his work from Austrian into English to bring into Western medical sciences was told, we have to change the wording so that it fits our paradigm of what medicine is. We have to make it like black and white. We have to make it empirical. So in that sense, guess what word was changed, and then everything was built on that. In his translation of all of his work, he talks about the soul. And the soul was translated into the mind. Yeah, I know!
Oh my God.
I'm like, what? And I was like, so this guy was actually entirely spiritual, and he's talking about not like the mind, he's talking about the soul. And like that changes everything.
Wow. That is so cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Go check it out. Google it, guys. It is like nuts. I can't believe I just learned this. But yeah, they really want us to believe that he came from it from a scientific Western science perspective. Right. No, he came at it from a spiritual lens. From this is the soul's journey. This is what your soul goes through, not your mind. Wow. So think about that. We literally severed the mind-body connection in our translation of Freud. So fuck that, you know, like
that brings
so much work to do.
So much.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like, like intuitively, like I've always known like my soul was wounded hard. And also I know my soul is, you know, something that can never be touched in a way. Like it's hard, or maybe my spirit is like untouchable, or one or the other is like, you know, everlasting and always with me and gives me strength, even when my mind is like danger, 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 danger. Like, so I really like approaching my healing with like brain chemistry versus intuitive soul knowing, and realizing like brain chemistry is like imposter syndrome, fear, hypervigilance, and like all of that is real. And every time I try to say, no, that's not real, you know, just meditate or whatever, it's like, nope, doesn't help at all. Like I can't bypass myself as hard as I try. So it's like, I have to deal with that brain chemistry, but I'm able to say, this isn't me. You know, this is my danger response. This is a part of my body, like to react like this and to be so scared and have intrusive thoughts. But like my soul, like knows everything is going to be okay. And like, I am on the path I'm meant to be on, and like everything is happening as it's meant to. And I'm really grateful for that knowing. That took a long time to develop, but yeah, it's really cool to think about both aspects being really important and what Freud might have really been talking about. So that's cool.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
So I want to ask just like one more quick question and then we can wrap it up because I know this is something we kind of mentioned in the beginning. No, I love this because like I could go on for like hours talking to you. I like love everything. I do want to touch on though, because we did talk about it and I know you said you wanted to talk about it. So who benefits from us not feeling good enough?
Yeah, this is great. So super relevant. Also, your cat's there.
Oh no, that's my dog. He's like literally my little side side companion everywhere I go.
Okay, yeah. So this is great. Relevant to what we were talking about is like when you have a lot of fear or doubt, like I personally have gotten a lot of motivation for like who benefits from me thinking I'm not good enough to do this work. And it's like, well, the person that told me I was never going to make it anywhere, I was worthless, I was better off dead, whatever, my abuser would benefit from me thinking that I can't do this. But then on a bigger scale, it's like, who does the abuser represent? Like for other people, it could be the oppressor. You know, wherever you fall in the intersectionality of all the things in the world is like, who benefits from me thinking I'm not good enough to do this?
Yes.
And it's like, that's hard to stand up against the oppressor, the abuser, the predator, the systems, the institutions, right? Like we deserve support as we do that. And it's really hard, but it's also like really validating to me of like my purpose on earth isn't to like listen to these messages and follow them. Like obviously there's a measure of survival where to live and survive, you know, sometimes you have to play small or, you know, just prioritize staying alive. But if you do have the privilege or ability to, you know, basically rebel and resist those messages, like that has really helped me with the imposter syndrome and helped me step out and speak my truth, because it's like, it's scary to think about what he would do if he, you know, found out what I was doing, and hopefully nothing, but like in my mind, it's like very dire. So it's scary to do it, but it's also like, I'm not on earth to listen to you anymore. Like I'm done. Like I said, I was done, you know, 7.5 years ago. I'm done now.
I'm wiping my hands. I don't got time for this anymore.
This really gets me in my like boss bitch mood where I'm just like, hell yeah, you dude. Like I'm off. Like I'm done with that.
I love that. I think I think you did a post or maybe a couple of posts around that. And I was just like, fuck yeah, that's so true. Like I talk about boundaries and like who benefits from you having none, but I never thought about it in the sense of like an abusive relationship or systems of oppression and institutions. Like, fuck yeah. You know, if you're a person of color, I'm a first and second generation Cuban American. I have one of my parents immigrated here from Cuba. And then on the other side, my grandparents came over. I was told my whole life, be white, be more white. You're European, you're Spaniard, you're French, like way back. So like you're white and all this, you know, look at all those, and I had, you know, people who were relatives who were Cuban who would look down on other Hispanics who maybe had like darker skin, maybe worked more service oriented jobs and would be like, look, this is where Hispanics go. Like you don't want to go there. And so for me, I'm like so scared about like showing like, or being that part of myself. And then I thought if I'm not white, then I won't have those. I was told literally I won't have those opportunities. And so while that might be, you know, true, it's rooted in truth. Like there are not that many opportunities given to, and I'm very white passing, you know, so I benefited from a lot of white privilege and I recognize that. But you know, like if it's true, but at the same time, how can we also fucking smash this? Because we cannot live like that anymore. Right. It's so not, there are ways now, especially with technology, and digital entrepreneurship and mentorship, from people who've done it before, like we can rise up and we don't have to subscribe to these messages that we are not worthy because of the color of our skin, because of our socioeconomic status, because we grew up in poverty, because of whatever, because of our sexual orientation, because of our gender. Fuck it. We don't have to subscribe to that. We do not have to buy into that.
Yeah. And like another one I've been adding to that list a lot is like neurodiversity of like, you know, right. Like if you have ADHD, if you have ADD, if you have autism, if you have trauma, you need to become as most like the norm. Like I always think in my head normal, which there is no normal, but like not like neurotypical people. Like you need to mask, you need to pretend, because in school, like that's how we get kids through the pipeline is like be as normal as you can, memorize these facts, take these tests. And like, I'm not here to shit on that. And whatever, that's over my head, but just like, we don't encourage people that like the way that you are is different, and sure, it might be challenging,
and to learn and to do things around that. Like that's exactly what I mean when I talk about like I'm neuroatypical, I guess, or neurodiverse because of what's happened to me from my trauma. Right. That is why I create a life entirely around what works for doing that versus like trying to fit myself into a corporate 9-to-5 and like seeing friends on the weekend, drinking alcohol, which I haven't done in over a year at this point. Like really not like, trying to fit into that whatever neurotypical world. And I also believe very much that, the way humans have evolved over time and how we've become as smart and as, advanced as we have is because of mutations in our DNA, mutations in our genetics, and these neurodiverse atypical genetics might be, in my opinion, our next evolution. There are many things that those of us who have autism or Asperger's, they're incredible geniuses in many ways. Like the way that their brain works is fucking amazing. They access just memory caches and things that like we can't ever touch. Like our brains don't turn on in that way. It's amazing. I have a client who is bipolar, and he's, the depth that this person can feel. Shit, what a gift, but also what a curse, So it's like learning to work with these gifts that you have and honor the things that really are making you so unique and special and make it work for you and create a life around that, and then like throw away the stuff that doesn't.
Yeah. And when we talk about like resistance and rebellion, and I say radical constantly in my posts, like you just being yourself even a little bit instead of like conforming to whoever it was, your family, your institutions, your relationships, your school told you to be, your religion. And you're like, no, I'm going to be who I am. Even if you're the only one that says that too, even if you're in your journal, like, wow, like I am gay, like, and that's okay. And you don't tell anyone else yet. It's like, you are resisting, you are being radical. Like, I just want to, make that clear.
Even
like,
just acknowledging it for yourself.
Yeah, right. You don't have to be you and me, parading it around on the internet or whatever. Like,
for sure.
Right. But like every step is like fucking dope. And like, it's going to ripple out like, all about it.
It's almost like loving yourself, whatever that looks like, whether it's showing it to people or not, is the most radical act of resistance that you can possibly have. Self-love.
Yes.
Going forever, but I feel like that's a really good place to end it until next time, because I'm sure we'll be talking again. So guys, Emmy is just incredible. I love her so much as a friend, as a colleague, as a client. I couldn't recommend her more. Her work is incredible, and she is going to change your life if you work with her. So please go check her out. So tell us, where can we find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at blooming forward. It's blooming_forward. My website is blooming-forward.com. And on my website and on my Instagram, you'll find I have several like free resources that I've created to help you on your healing journey. I also have, when this is being recorded, I'm like in the midst of my launch of my like signature journaling method that I'm calling Blooming Forward Daily.
It's incredible, guys. Go get this. It's $22, like the best $22 you're going to ever spend. I literally tried to journal like this, like when I was healing, and it was a fucking hot mess, and I just gave up after a day. So literally this template, this whole thing is incredible.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So that's available. And then I also do one-to-one coaching. It's currently on a wait list, but definitely jump on there if you feel called. That's about it, but I'm definitely very,
and we'll put all this in the show notes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. This was so fun, and I cannot believe how fast it went.
I know. We're going to have to do this again soon. And if any of you guys are curious as well about the Ignite program that's coming up, it's a 3-month group coaching program. Emmy just went through a version of that. And so feel free to send her a DM, ask her if you have any questions. I can talk about it, until I die, because I love it so much. But I think it's really awesome to hear from someone who actually went through it, what that experience was like. So reach out to her.
Happy to take questions.
Thank you so much. And Emmy, seriously, thank you so much for being you, letting us really into your world, and creating Blooming Forward, because I know you're just helping so many people. So thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Yes. Thank you.
Talk soon, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much for joining me for another episode of the Conscious Leadership Podcast. I am so excited that you're here and that we are growing together. If there was anything that you took away from today's episode, I would love to hear about it. Take a screenshot, tag me with what you took away, and we will repost you. And if you are interested in leaving us a review on iTunes, we are going to give you a free copy of my Subconscious Reprogramming Workbook. It is an incredible workbook that helps you work through all of the deep programming that happened during childhood that might be holding you back in your life today. So super valuable. This is a $75 workbook. I am willing to just send it to you for free because I would love to hear your feedback on iTunes reviews. So shoot us a review, take a screenshot, and DM us with a screenshot of your review, and we will send you a free copy. The Light Leader community calls are also up and running. I'm so excited to be providing a completely free space for all of you guys to come connect, learn, grow, and step into your light leadership. These calls are every other Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, and I will be dropping the Zoom link in my emails for my email list. So if you are not already on the email list, head on over to my page at om_therapy_coaching on Instagram and click the link in my bio to sign up for the email list. You will be on the list for all of these community calls. You can pop in whenever you'd like, ask us questions, and we'll also be providing trainings to help you do all the deep inner work to step into your leadership and also the practical stuff to help you set up a business. It's going to be amazing. So come join us for that. The first call is going to be this Thursday, August 20th, and every other Thursday moving forward. And lastly, we have the OLA Ignite program. Yes! This is going to be launching its second round 2.0 coming up September 1st. So September 1st, we're opening the doors for enrollment, and October 1st, we begin the next round. So I'm super excited. All of my light leaders who went through this round just found tremendous success, financial freedom, personal freedom, confidence, and they're just changing the world in such unique ways that are so aligned with who they are as human beings and as soul leaders that it's just amazing to watch it happen. And I'm just so excited to provide this container and support for you. There are going to be guest coaches, OM-specific co-coaches, me, a 12-week online course, group calls twice a month, one-to-one call support, and it's just a constant hype up. So come join us. If you are a female light leader, I am calling on you to join our community. So we launch enrollment September 1st. Keep an eye out and we will keep you updated with all the latest. Thank you again for joining me. I am so happy to connect with you, and keep coming back and letting your powerful light leader shine. We love you, we see you, we need you, and we honor you.